Hey everybody, Divine Ramza here, back with a brand new hot review for you. You're probably saying to yourself, hey Ramza, we already know about Gunsmoke, it's a great game on the NES, and yes, it is a very good game, but I'm not going to review that game today. I'm going to be reviewing the device that's on right now. It is the Odroid Go. Now, the Odroid Go has kind of been a hot thing here for the past few months. Everybody's calling it the Game Boy killer. So, is it the Game Boy killer? Well, we will see here. I'm not going to be doing an unboxing video, obviously, because it's already unboxed and put together. I'm not going to be doing a video where I put it together because my big hands usually don't work well with the small pieces, so I'm kind of a klutz. But let's just start here at the beginning. When you open up the box, I mean, there's not tons there. It's the case, the screen, battery, speaker, the pad, the buttons, all that, and some screws. I mean, it's not that complicated of a device. You look on the back and it's just the board and everything else. Overall, it shouldn't take you more than about 15 minutes or so to put it together. Unfortunately, there are no instructions that come with it on how to put it together, and since I'm not the biggest tech person, I did fairly well. I got stuck on a few different things, like on the back two plugs here. I was like, okay, one's for the speaker, one's for the battery. Now, which is which? Now, if you look closely here, where does it say? Well, right by there, it's hard to see, but it says like speaker or something. But if you don't know what you're looking at on a board, you're like, hey, what the hell's going on? The other thing, realize, is that it came with a 10-pin male header, and I was looking everywhere in here, like, where the hell does it go? I don't see it anywhere. Then I realized that it goes in here at the top, which, from what I can gather, is generally only used if you want to hook up like an external screen or an external, I don't know what, but that you really don't need. But overall, it would have been nice to have just a page of instructions on what to do. But the only other tricky thing was putting the ribbon in for the screen. When it works fine, but again, big hands, small spaces, it took some work. But overall, though, I mean, it only took me about 15 minutes or so. The micro SD card does not come with it, so you do need one, but we all have about 10 of them at home. Honestly, you probably only need a 16 gig card. You will not even use up 1 gig. Trust me on that. The Odroid site said that you need at least an 8 gig card because the operating system, firmware, and all that stuff takes up a lot of space. Now, if that's true or not, I don't know. I only got a 16 gig card for this because, honestly, my lowest one that I had at the time was 32 gigs, which I knew would be overkill, so I went to the store. Apparently, they don't sell 4 gig cards or 8 gig cards anymore in the big stores, so I had to go with 16. People online are saying that they got it all to work on 4 gig card, 2 gig card, but I just went 16 because it was like $8, so that's perfectly fine. Let's go to the actual system itself. We have 4 buttons here at the top. We have, what do we have here? We have Start, Select, Volume here, and the menu button here. And I should also say that the power button here is right on the side. You'll be using the menu button a lot on here because that's the only way to get back to the front page of the system. The volume you can do at 3 different levels. Got loudest here. Nope, no, here. Okay. You got mute, low, medium, high. And honestly, the medium volume is fine to play with. Loud, I mean, it works. It's a little bit too loud for me. But if you're in public with other people, you may want to do it on low, because medium can still get a little bit loud in large spaces here. I should also note that there is no headphone jack in here, but I also saw online that there were some people who have hacked it to put a headphone jack in there. I personally don't really care, but if you do, go ahead. If I tried it, I'd probably nuke the house, destroy the system, so I don't really care. I should also make a big note here. The case only comes in clear, which is cool in itself, but if you want a different color, you're going to have to do it yourself. There are tons of videos out there about how to change the color of the case, with like paint, spray paint, whichever. I didn't do it, again, because I really don't care. Word of advice, though, is to do it before you put the thing together, because I guess, you want to spray paint the inside side of the case, which is fine. But it's kind of a pain in the butt to take everything back apart when it's already been put together. So, just a warning there, if you want to paint it, do it beforehand, not after you've already put it together. So, we got the pad and the buttons here, and they work fairly well. They are a little, I don't want to say stiff, but it's like it's a brand new controller, so it's a little bit hard. It works great, but it's not as, I guess, soft as some people might want. But after playtime, though, they'll wear in, so everything will be fine. So let's try out some features here. You can push the menu here to go back to the start. And originally, it was only supposed to emulate the NES, Game Boy Color, Master System, and the Game Gear. But in like a week or two ago, they updated the firmware to also include ColecoVision, which is great. Now, everything I've tried works fairly well. There are some games that do have some screen tearing on them. In some games, the sound, doesn't sound perfect. But again, if you emulate, it won't ever be 100% perfect. You want the original system for that. But for those of us that do emulate, we don't care. Just as long as it's close, hey, that's fine. And again, this is still fairly new. I think the very first firmware for this was either late May or early June. So this has only been around for about 2 months or so. So, I mean, in as early of a stage as it is, I mean, this thing is great. Like, let's try some NES games here. Now, if you go on the wiki or Reddit, you will see that it plays a good chunk of games. There's the full compatibility list hasn't been released just because the people who made the Odroid, they're not putting in that work, so it's up to the fans. There's a few games on each system that I've seen that don't work, but as time goes on, firmware's updated, the emulators are worked on. We'll see. I mean, there's going to be things you cannot use, like on the Master System and the NES. You're not going to be able to use the light gun, obviously. The Master System, you won't be able to use 3D glasses and stuff. That kind of thing. With handheld games, if it has like the Rumble Pack with it, you won't be able to use that, obviously. But, I mean, it all works good. So there's Batman there. And even though it's a small speaker, though. It puts out pretty good sound, so I'm not really too worried about that. Let's see, amazing spot. Let's see, let's try something here. And, because, yeah, with a 16 gigabyte card, you can put every single game on all 6 systems here, and you won't even fill up like 2 gigs. So you don't have to worry about space at all. Cosmo Take here, and so that works really. I mean, it loads everything up fairly fast. I've seen some people online where some of the quote unquote bigger games take a while to load, but it's like, with all of these systems here, what are big games? I mean, these games are tiny, and they load up pretty fast, so I don't know what they're doing, but let's try Game Boy Color here. Let's see here. Let's try Harvest Moon. Okay, let's try this here. But yeah, I mean, they all load fairly well. Harvest Moon looks good. Okay, let's go over to the Master System. Let's go to everybody's favorite, Alf. Let's go to Alf. Let's go to Phantasy Star, which is probably the best game on here for the system. Looks great. I mean, it emulates pretty damn well. It's okay. That's good. Now let's try the Game Gear. One thing that I'm not the biggest fan of the original Game Gear because the screen was crap, the battery life was crap. But on here though, I dig it because the screen is great. And let's try Krusty's Funhouse, which I remember wasn't the best game on here, but let's just see how it looks. Yeah, I mean, it works good. And with the new ColecoVision here, let's try that. Let's see, one of my favorites was BC's Quest for Tires. So I'm already in the midst of the game, I think, or no? Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's great. Overall, I mean, it is a great system. One of the biggest things is the battery. And again, I'm not a tech person, so I can't tell you more about the battery, but this whole thing is designed to be a low power unit. I've been playing this thing over the past week and a half or so, about hour or two a day, and I haven't charged it yet. I mean, I charge it to capacity at first, and week and a half, I've only used one part of the battery there. I mean, it lasts a long, long time. But now let's go to some of the bad things, I guess, about it. These aren't things that are really deal breakers. They're just nits that I want to pick. One of the biggest things, though, is, and again, with not being a tech person, it's really only relies on 8-bit architecture. And with it being a low-cost, low-power thing, you won't be getting much more out of this for 2 reasons. The first thing is that, as you can see, there are only 2 buttons there on the front. There aren't any on the back or anything. So the SNES, the Genesis, they're all out of the question. Other 16-bit systems, like the TurboGrafx 16, that's probably going to be out of the question. Again, never say never. But this thing relies on systems that have 2-button controllers. People have already released emulators for the Atari 2600 and Atari 7800, and they do have some bugs in them, but again, over time it'll work good. And they also released an emulator for the ZX Spectrum computer, or if you want to call it the ZX Spectrum, whichever. And I've played a little bit of that. It works good. My wish list for that, which we'll see, it'd be good to have a main port to play older arcade games. You know, I'm not thinking about Mortal Kombat, NFL Blitz, anything like that. But if you get like Asteroids or all the millions of games out there that my mind is drawing blank on, it'd be good to just get a version MAME that plays the old games, or like a Commodore 64 one, which would be cool, or like a Lynx, or I think those are about it that I can think of that have 2-button controllers. I mean, if they can do a program for the ZX Spectrum, they should be able to do one for Commodore 64 or 128. You know, that'd be great. Again, we won't be able to get tons on there just because that's the way it is. This isn't meant to be a powerful system. Possibly in the future, you know, if they ever release an Odroid 2, they could put 4 buttons on the front. And, you know, as for the shoulder buttons, I've seen some current pocket systems where they like have them attached to the back, but that's didn't always work out right. So I don't know what they would do with that, but if in the future though, if they could make a system where you could play 16-bit systems, I'll be all on that. One of the things that also hinders this is that the firmware and every other program that needs to fit on there, the flash RAM on there that the firmware fits in is only 16 megabytes, not gigs or anything, megabytes. So everything that this thing runs on has to fit within 16 megs, which is why right now the Atari emulators and the ZX Spectrum, they're not part of the official firmware. We can see, you know, if we can get it on there, but basically what you have to do is if you want to play those, you have to reflash the firmware with because the firmware files are on the memory card. Then if you want to go back to the original stuff here, then you have to reflash the firmware and add the original one back on. So I mean, it works. It's a pain in the butt. But 16 megs, I mean, again, if they could have done 32, 64, whichever, you know, that doesn't cost much, but it is what it is. Speaking of which, though, to update the firmware, you have to download a program on your computer, hook it up to the computer, erase the firmware, then re-upload it. There's not a whole lot of documentation on this, and it can be kind of a pain in the butt. Like, the few documents and videos I found online just says, you know, hey, push this, this, and this, and it works perfectly fine. The first time I tried it, I went to erase it, and it gave me an error code. It said failed. Looked everywhere online. I was like, what the hell's going on? Found people with that problem, but of course there's no documentation, so how in the hell were we supposed to know what to do? Well, I found one forum thread that said you have to put it into flash mode first, which I believe is you hold down the volume button, I think, while you power it on, and then you can do it and it'll work fine. I mean, it was a pain in the ass. None of the videos said anything about it, but whatever. There are tons of shortcuts with the keys, which I'll get into here in a sec, that of course should be documented, but they aren't. The other big thing that, again, it is what it is, but there really isn't any way to load or save a state on here. Now what that means is, let's say I'm playing a game. Let's try Amazing Penguin here. And hey, I want to go back to the main menu here. Well, there really isn't a way to do that. As is, what you have to do is push the menu button here, but watch, you push it, save a second. Any single game on here that you do it will save that state. So you can go and play any other game. Okay, we're here, cool, push this. And now, let's say I want to go back to, what the hell we're on? Oh my god, I just forgot here. Actually, no, we were on Amazing Penguin, guys. So dumb. So we'll start that back up. Now, when you start it back up, it goes exactly where you were previously when you hit the menu button, which is great for games that don't have the save feature or anything. You can just go back and do it. But what if you want to load a state? Like, say, you play, you die, but I want to go back to exactly where I was. I don't want to restart the game. Well, you can't. You can't reload the state. So, what if you're playing and you just want to reset the game? Well, we saw if you push the menu button, it doesn't reset the game. It just takes you back to the main menu. Get back into it, and and there you are. But what you have to do if you want to reset the game, which hopefully I can do it here, you have to hold down the start button, turn it off, turn it back on, and it resets the game, which is pain in the ass, but it works. I just want a way to load and save states and being able to pick which state I want to load, even if it's only like 1 or 2 states per game. I'm not a software guy, so I don't know exactly for sure how that works, but that's the big thing for me, though. And it should be easier, though, to reset the game. That's about it for the downsides. It isn't anything really, really, really bad. Just some nits that I want to pick. So overall, what I would recommend for this, check the prices everywhere online. I know lots of places are running out of it, so it can be hard to find. The biggest thing is don't buy it on Amazon, because last time I checked it was like $45 with like $5 or $10 shipping, and that's way too much. The official page has it for $32, but because it's overseas, it's $16 shipping. $48 is still not great. I went on Ameridroid.com, so it's AMERIDROID.com, which they claim to be the official American carrier of the Odroid stuff, which I don't know how true that is, but they're in America. I forget what the base price was, but the price with shipping was only $42. So that's a great deal. And I got it within 2 days or 3 days. So $42 is what you should expect to spend. And for that price, this is a great thing. I see that some people get mad because it doesn't do all the stuff they want it to. It doesn't play Super NES games. It can't do this or that. Here's the thing. This isn't meant to do that stuff. This is meant as a low-power, low-budget system. If you want to play Super NES games, Genesis, TurboGrafx-16, PlayStation games, honestly, get yourself a PSP Go, PSP, or like a Vita. Now, Vitas and PSP Goes, they can go for some cash these days. So but they're also a lot more powerful and can do a lot more. So if you just want to play old games and help a project from the bottom up, I mean, then go with this. This is a great system. I love it. Is it perfect? Heck no. It isn't perfect. It will only get better with time, but it is a great little toy. For $42, I dig it a lot. Now, is it the Game Boy killer? Well, that's hard to say, really. I mean, there's one thing to be said about playing original games on original hardware, and just like the feel of the Game Boy, it has a weight to it. This thing here doesn't weigh anything. It is lightweight. And my Game Boy Color, I've dropped a lot. It still works perfectly fine. My Game Boy Advances, I've dropped, and they still play fine. This one, you know, I don't want to drop it, but because I mean the case is good, but I don't know, you know, how good of quality it is though. So, is it a Game Boy killer? Yes and no. From the point that you can play any Game Boy game on it, and it plays darn well. It emulates everything pretty darn well. Not perfect. I mean, it works great. The picture's great. The sound's great. It works great. But there's something to be said about original hardware, though. And like the Game Boy Color's cheap. You can get it for like $15, $20 in a variety of colors. This is just clear. But this can do more, though. So I would say, honestly, this is a must-buy. I'll give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. This is a great little unit here. Definitely worth your time. And yeah, again, go to Ameridroid.com, AMERIDROID.com. Pick it up, and thanks for watching the video. I hope everybody gets one to support this product here. As with before, you know, smash the like button, share, subscribe. I'm going to try and get some more videos out here. But other than that, guys, thanks. Peace out.